Do you know about Amelia Earhart? I was the first female pilot to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean. I was born on July 24th, 1897. When I was young, and I was the youngest in my family, and I received the United States Distinguished Flying Cross. I made many other records, and I wrote the best-selling books about my flying. I love to help people as well. I was a nurse. Some people described me as outgoing, confident, and loving. I gave a speech about hardships and took lots of odd jobs to pay for flying lessons. When I was little, me and my sister Muriel liked to collect insects and frogs. I was inspired by the Wyatt brothers, and I saw them fly an airplane when I was just 11 years old at the state fair. My first flying lesson took place on January 3rd, 1928, at Kenner Field near Long Beach. I bought a leather jacket, which was common for aviators, on June 17th, 1928. I left the Passy Harbor in Newfoundland, Canada, board the airplane with Bill Slutz, pilot, and Sim Gordon, co-pilot. 21 hours later, the plane arrived at Barry Port, Wales, United Kingdom. The flight on June 17th, 1928, cemented my place in history as the first female to fly across the Atlantic Ocean. My last flight, I decided that my next trip would be to fly around the world. In March 1997, I flew to Hawaii with pilot Fred Noonan. I began this flight and lost control of the plane on takeoff. However, the plane had just been sent for factory repairs. I traveled over 200 miles from Newfoundland in just under 15 hours, unlike Charles Lindbergh. I was well known by the public for my solo transaction flight in 1928. As a member of the threesome-person crew, I had become the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean. I did a lot of boyish activities. I also gave a speech. I believe that women have as much courage as men. I love to help the poor and children. I love to see people happy. And I was the first teacher pilot Netta Shook in the 1920s. In 1930s, things were very different. There were not many jobs back then, and their cars were very slow, and women were like housewives. But I was very adventurous. I said women must try to do things men have tried. I even got to meet Eleanor and President Franklin Roosevelt. Miss Eleanor got to ride in my 10E Electric. I did prepare to leave New Guinea in my 10 Electric, and my fuel was at least 100 pounds of fuel. And my trip would be 22,000 miles, and I had at least about 700 miles to get to California. I was going to refuel when I got to Howland Island. I was supposed to get transmissions every hour by my radio operator. At the time, the headwinds were very strong and anticipated. The radio operator sent 3 transmissions to me, but I did not seem to get them. Though my speed was 140 knots and altitude was 700 feet, everything seemed to be okay, but then the headwinds were very deadly and my fuel would have been 97 gallons. Soon I would reach Itasca's ship that would guide me to the island, and I did give a transmission where we must be on you but cannot see you. My second transmission was gas running low. Last transmission was we are on lines 157 to 337. We will repeat this message. We will repeat this on 610 kilometers. Wait, we are running north and south. They said my voice was frantic at that point. That was the last heard of me.